Hi everyone, my name is Paul. I'm a contributor to Pluto, and today I will talk about automated bindings and metaprogramming, and more precisely the use of macros inside Pluto. So in this talk, hopefully you'll learn a bit about metaprogramming in Julia if you don't know about it. We'll go and discuss about the binding mechanism in Pluto, and hopefully you'll learn a bit about Pluto's internals. And so please note that this is not using the regular Pluto version, but it's a work in progress to add support to macros inside Pluto. And so first we'll talk about metaprogramming for those of you who don't know. And so the example we took is that we want to create a small macro that will take a Polish notation expression and give us the results. Polish notation is an arithmetic notation where the operator is at the start of the expression. So if I tap plus and then 1 and 2, I'm expected to have 3, just like if I were to type 1 plus 2. But we have one problem, is that it's not valid in Julia, it's not valid Julia code, so we have to write the macro, which is a function, ultimately a function that will take Julia code as input and output Julia code as well. And when we will call our macro, it will transform the Julia code we'll give it and execute the new Julia code that is outputted by the function. So to do that, I created a function that takes 2 elements and transform and returns a new expression. So this is an expression in Julia, and this function have 2 methods for two cases. The one is first one is if we regularly call with anything, a symbol or function call, then the first element will be an expression calling the function, calling a function. So this is really not this is simple code that should not cover all cases, but we're focusing only on minus and plus, so this should work. And so if this is a call to minus, we're returning a minus b, otherwise a plus b. And the second case is for numbers. If we give minus 1, this will not be a call to the minus function. Instead it will give us a number which has the value minus 1. So what we'll do is return, if it's negative, we'll return minus a minus b, and otherwise a plus b. So what does this give us? If we call the function with minus 1 and 2, this returns 1 minus 2 as expected. The same goes for plus 1, 2 and minus a 2, so a minus 2, and this works as well with symbols. So b plus x will work as well. And so now we'll put it inside a macro, what this means that we can call the macro with the @ symbol. And so now if I call the Polish notation macro I created, which is just calling this function, this gives us 3 as expected. And so we can also use symbols, and so now if I have a slider, the slider will work. So I have 32 and 22, and so this 32 minus 10 because it's a man. But if I put a plus, then I have 42, and this will work. And it works with symbols, but obviously it works with function calls. We can even replace both a and b with matrices. So if I do this, we'll have an addition of 2 matrices. And the same goes for subtraction, which will work as well. So this is for the introduction on metaprogramming. And now we'll talk more about Pluto and more specifically about bindings. Bindings in Pluto, the bind macro is a macro that is given to you in Pluto that allows you to bind a symbol to the HTML element on the page. And so this is what I've been using here, the slider, to modify the value from A to Z. And so if I bind the variable Julia variable my name to this HTML input, then whenever I change the HTML input, I will be able to use the my name variable anywhere in Julia, and when I change the HTML inputs, this will change the output. So this is reactivity. This is one of the core principles of Pluto. And so under the hood, how does this work? And so I went and extracted the bind macro code from the Pluto source code. And so here it is. It's just those few lines. We don't really have to understand what it means, but we can redefine it with our own name. And so if we compare the calls, those are identicals, but this one is our version, which is just copy-pasted code from Pluto source code, and this is the regular Pluto's bind. So if I move the value b, which is defined with Pluto's bind, the b is updated, but the same goes for the my bind, which is defined up there. And so you might ask, what's the interest in redefining our own bind? And so we can do more useful things with this. For example, I've always used sliders because sliders are great. They're nice to visualize the value and interact. And so we can create a bind slider macro that will give a symbol and a range, and it will create the slider for us from the range that it is given. So instead of having to call all the slider, we can just do @bind slider. If we had many sliders to do, that would be useful. And so now it's working as expected, but note the difference. We are just giving the range, and so when it receives the range, it's calling the bind macro with a slider of that range. And we can go even further, which is cool. We've got one slider, but what if we wanted to define multiple symbols in just one call? And so we can create a multi-bind slider macro, and given a set of symbols, it will create a bind slider for each. And so if I say I want to define I, G, K, L with the value from 1 to 10, and then I have them there, I will receive an array of bindings. And so we could improve the display here, but this is just to showcase. So we can move the values, and each slider which will be linked to its own value. So if I move the first one, this is the L, and so the L will be updated. And that's for creating our own helper macros. This is example for binds, but macros are useful for all kind of things, and there are many packages in Julia that are using macros to provide their own functionality through domain-specific languages. And so the final part of this talk would be about automated bindings. So you might wonder, what are automated bindings? What do I mean by that? So for now, I've only shown you bind macros where I am updating the value. So this is for the developer, the user, the user is updating the value. But what if the value was updated through programmatically, and this would allow us to have code that is updated once a value changes, and that could be useful for data streams, for example. And so what I want to show you is this bind macro to which is called Github Events, which is connected, as you can see, to nothing. So this is not an HTML input element. So by default, Github Events will have a value of missing. But I will launch a script on the side that will connect to Pluto and update the bind for us. And so it will receive events from GitHub. In GitHub, you have an API endpoint where you can query latest events from the public GitHub API, and so we'll display them here. And so what I did is that every time the GitHub Events bind changes, we push to a variable which is stored in the main module. So this variable will not be reactive. It will be will have a constant value and will not be updated from. And this allows us to do kind of a think and a reduction of stream events. So for now I'm only pushing to this array, but we could imagine using any kind of reduction to have a summary of our stream of events. And so now if I start updating the value from the GitHub Events variable, we will see the events will start flowing in our reactive graph, and they will be pushed into this commit events array, and hopefully we will see them displayed here. So I've launched the script, and so now you can see the GitHub events will start ticking. This is because we have new events flowing in, and so here we've got our first events coming live from GitHub, and so those are push events. So some people can push multiple commits, and so we are seeing updates live from GitHub. Obviously, I throttled this a lot so that we don't have too many updates, but we see live events. So we can see what's happening on GitHub right now. And so that's the idea, that it's to have a binding that is updated through code instead of human interaction, and that allows us to do more experiences that you can see instead of interact with. And so here we could imagine having filters and so on to have a better understanding of our live updates. Obviously, GitHub is perhaps not the best example, because if you don't throttle, you've got too many updates. But for live dashboards of events that are controllable, then you can see what's happening. So I think I only show the last 10, and they are updating every 2 seconds. So this is highly throttled. I think we are a bit late compared to a live GitHub, but this is fine. And so thanks for your attention. This was my talk about automated bindings, and if you have any ideas or use cases for this kind of updates from the computer, obviously what I shown you is really early stage, and it should not be used as is, but if we have ideas of to improve or want to create notebooks that are not just for the users to interact with, but also for the users to consume, so dashboards and so on, there are plenty of opportunities to explore, and I think this is a good proof that Pluto is a solid platform, because we can build this sort of experience. If you have ideas, use cases, get in touch with the Pluto team, and we'll see you. Bye.
Wow, thank you, Paul. Thank you so much. That was an amazing talk.
Thanks.
Just so for context for the people watching, you might have noticed that macros don't work so well in Pluto. That's because Pluto doesn't understand macros. This has been a problem for a year, and we put it on GitHub. And Paul reached out to us that he could solve this problem, which he is kind of halfway done. And that's why the notebook you saw today was using macros, and still it works. So, you're all invited to go to our GitHub or go to our Notion page and look for things that still need to be fixed. That would be amazing. Okay, I guess my first question is, maybe you can say a bit more about, you showed GitHub Events today, but what else do you imagine yourself using, for example?
I think that we could use those kind of notebooks to show events from the outside. So, for example, if you have a thermometer that is outside your house, you could have a notebook showing you the average temperature or a graph throughout the day, and that would be to physical systems or systems that updates regularly. I think there would be good use cases for those kind of notebooks.
So, Paul, one question for me. You are a small macro wizard. How do you do that? How do you? What is your process with macros? Because coming from a front-end background and more of the visual stuff, I kind of struggle with macros. How do you do that? What's your trick?
A lot of print debugging, I guess.
Okay, that was not what I expected.
No, but yeah, it's a lot of debugging, I guess. And when working with Pluto, I learned a lot about Julia's syntax, so perhaps it's easier this way. But yeah, a lot of debugging. It's not wizardry.
Okay.
All right. I think this is a very big subject, and if people want to discuss it more, then they're welcome to join our weekly developer calls. They're open to anyone who wants to join. You can find us on the Julia Zulip chat, and yeah, get in touch. Thank you again, Paul. Next, we'll go to Connor, also a Pluto developer, who will talk about what you see is what you rest.
Can't wait.
Yes.
Can't wait.
It should be nice.
Really cool, Paul.